We had a billboard go up outside of our neighborhood in Texas when laws changed in Texas that resulted in Planned Parenthood shutting down and going out of business. We'd drive by one of those offices on our way to church, and it was kind of encouraging to see how one day it was all lit up inside, and the next week it was just all blacked out and out of business. But at the same time, this billboard went up outside of our neighborhood, and it was advertising for people to go to New York State to have abortions. And I was stunned, that you're actually, that's what you're paying money to advertise is come to our state because we're welcoming. And then on the Christian side, I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say that I think a lot of money is spent in ways that doesn't really help kids. It goes to a lot of people running kind of foundations and things that it's not meeting the actual need of, what does this do for a kid to have the safety of a permanent home, whether that's reunification or adoption. There's a lot of people raising money, but does it actually result in something that helps kids?
You think about the stats about how much money is spent on just pets, kind of random, but even there's like pet nonprofits and sure, it's a great cause, but you're like, people are spending millions and donating millions.
More money is donated for animals. Oh my gosh. I've seen something, I don't know if this is truth, but I saw something saying more money is donated towards animals than towards human life.
Like ICA
and supporting that.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing. If you Google, if you were to Google right now, foster care or adoptions, what pops up is cats and dogs. I mean, we really our society really doesn't have an emphasis on the need. And mind you, I understand right now it's so taboo to talk about adoption and foster care because we want people to reunify. And that's always the main goal of foster care. That's what they say. But I think that we've given kids this perception like you shouldn't be adopted. We keep talking about these conversations like you should go back to your family. You should. And when that's not possible, the way that influences these kids to have such a negative view of themselves, like I shouldn't be adopted, I should have gone with them. And it's like, those things are not untrue, but kids need to find hope in adoption. When you are in that situation and when it feels hopeless, adoption is one thing that can give that child hope to have a family, to have a mom and dad. I mean, every single one of our kids that's come through our home has said that they wanted to have a family. None of them have said, I don't want a family. We haven't had a single kid that said, I don't want a mom, I don't want a dad. That's what they all long for. They long for siblings. They long for a dog and a backyard to play in and food on the table. I mean, whether or not they are even aware of it yet, that's what they're hoping for, So this way that it is right now, the culture around it to say that reunification is the only way, it is hurting kids. And so we have to be balanced in those conversations where, yes, Christians believe in restoration and we believe in rehabilitation. But what does that look like? And that's the one question I love to ask. I love to say, okay, so in this scenario, what does rehabilitation look like? And I ask my workers and I ask the judge and I'll ask the attorneys and I'll ask everybody in the case, what does that look like? For example, our son was abused and he had broken bones all over his body, a traumatic brain injury, and a skull fracture. And so when I'm talking to people that were involved in his case, I said, well, what would you normally do? What does rehabilitation look like for a parent? They have lost control in a way that is unusual. And they said, we don't have a rehabilitation program for parents who have done things like this. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, you don't have one? It's like, no one is rehabilitated to a place where we say this is like, that's good enough. There's not a good enough process. Right. Yeah. And so that's hard to hear, but in those scenarios, that's where I say we need to make sure those children never feel like there's not hope. Like, adoption is a great option for kids from that scenario. And so both, we want both. We want rehabilitation, restoration. We also want adoptions, and we want kids to have hope.